of the East Goshen Township Board of Supervisors for Tuesday, June 1st, 2021. And Marty usually leads us in the Pledge of Allegiance. We have a picture of a sailboat. Is everyone still there?
Yes.
All right. I got a real funky screen here.
Yeah,
Yes.
Me too. I hope we have our lifesavers.
All right. Well, let's pretend that that sailboat has a flag hanging on it, and I'm going to ask, in the absence of John, if John Herzog could lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance
Allegiance.
to the flag of the United
Of the United
States of America
and to
and
the
to the
republic
republic for which it
which it
stands,
stands,
one nation,
under God,
indivisible,
indivisible,
Liberty.
with liberty
and
and
justice
justice
for
for
all.
all.
Thank you. Michelle, can you lead us in a moment of silence?
I sure will. I'd like to take this opportunity to ask everyone to remember all of our fallen military members, active and inactive, retired today, please, as yesterday was our Memorial Day. Thank you for all who served.
Thanks, Michelle. I'm going to announce that the meeting is being live streamed on YouTube. And the chairman's report, the board met in executive session prior to tonight's meeting with our solicitor to discuss pending legal matters related to the Paley Pike Trail and some staffing issues. I'd also like to announce that that was Marty.
Sounded like Holy Communion.
Susan, you might reach out to Marty separately if you can and let him know how to call in. That Kelly Marcus has resigned from the Sustainability Advisory Committee. Kelly was a very smart, engaged person, and regret that she's leaving. And so we'll be looking for somebody to join that very vibrant Sustainability Advisory Committee going forward. And also June 15th, board meeting will be in person at 7 o'clock at the Township Building. We are in the process of attempting to begin to return to normal, and you can see it happening around us in different phases, and people being permitted to kind of decide on for themselves a little bit on how they're going to protect themselves going forward. And I like that. So we're going to do our meeting in person on the 7th. There are no public hearings tonight, and I see no emergency service reports. We don't have a financial report. So we're down to looking at the minutes of May 4th and May 11th of 2021. Does anybody have any comments on the minutes as presented?
I do
not.
I do. Correction, unless you're going with an alternate spelling, David, I think page line 14, we should omit the E at the end of David and just refer to you as David. You normally do.
Yeah.
But
Well,
I think you are so cool. Why not?
I didn't know if you were telling us something there. I'm just sure.
We have a Dave, a David, and a David, huh?
David. Yeah.
Inagata Davide.
Ooh, the
Oh.
long version.
All right. Any other amendments to the board? Thank you for that, Michelle.
That's the only one.
That was brilliant, Michelle.
And
Yeah.
I would move to accept, I would make a motion to accept the minutes with the correction that I mentioned on page 2, line 14.
Second the motion.
May the 4th of 2021. Thanks.
May the
Any-
fourth be with you.
There you go. Any other comments or from the board? Any comments from the public on the minutes? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries 4-0. The treasurer's report.
Oh, do you want to include May the 11th on that, or because we have
Yeah, 4th and May 11th. Yeah.
4th and May 11th? And I didn't see anything on May the 11th.
Okay, anyone have any corrections at 11th, kind of retrospectively here?
No.
Okay, then the motion carries. We're good. All right, the treasurer's report. Anybody have any comments on the, well, let's start with Dave. You want to just give us a summary of the treasury report, and then we'll vote on the bills as presented.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Basically, we're doing very well with all of our taxes. Real estate transfer tax had a boom. Franchise fee came up a little bit better than we thought. We actually got a $1,000 donation from the Township of the Filmmaker Showcase. We recouped $51,784 for damage at the Boot Paoli intersection where an accident happened, and all of that light fixtures, signs was taken out. We finally got the check back from that. We have an additional $4,000 forthcoming once I recoup the damage or the depreciated amount that they withheld from us, but that's ongoing. And I talked to him on Friday. He's going to relinquish that to us as well.
Good.
And I'm working with Mark Miller. He's going to provide Kelly some information so we can also get some of our staff paid for the time that they spent on that.
Hey, Dave, was that a property put in as a property claim or a third party liability claim for the person who caused the damage?
I'm not 100% sure on that.
They will subrogate against the lady that ran into the signal cabinet.
Yeah, the question is on the depreciation, because with a third party liability, there is no depreciation. It's only done on a first party. So if it's a
That's good
third
point.
party, they can subrogate and get the full amount. So, okay, thank you.
Earned income tax was strong again. Little bit over $1,000 for Mary Dell for some wildflowers, and we got a replacement phone system. So just under $8,000 that was budgeted for and came in less than cost. Other than that, it was a lot of checks, but nothing out of the ordinary.
Okay. All right. Any comments about the invoices as presented, expenditures?
Just a couple of comments, if I might. First, Dave, it would be helpful when you make a statement in the summary, and I recognize it's a summary on the report. When it says earned income tax realized strong revenues of 419,000 this month, and also local service revenue of 64. It's nice to know without too much additional work, but it's nice to know either if it was strong relative to what, relative to the same period, the same month last year in 2020, or relative to what is budgeted, it was stronger relative to the amount budgeted. Just a comment. So it gives us a little bit more of a snapshot perspective. I did want to note that the bonds for both our Director of Finance, Dave Ware, and our new manager, Derek Davis, have been paid. I presume, Dave, those are prorated, those amounts to reflect when you gentlemen both came on board. Is that correct? Or is
I think they're for a year.
It'll be a
so,
year.
So it's just
Yeah.
period. That's what it is for you. It's not prorated.
Right.
Okay, just curious. And then I had in batch 1 of 7, page 1, and then batch 4 of 7, page 2, there were references to Divot, the Delaware Valley. Was that Delaware Valley, our
Health
investment
trust?
our health. One was related to January, and then the other was May. That we just missed the January payment or something, and it got doubled up in this particular bills to pay.
Yeah, that one, the January payment, which was, I believe, around 50,000,
Yeah.
was not. We got a notice from them that was
Okay.
outstanding still, so we had not paid that. That was catching that up.
Okay, I thought that might be the case. I don't think I had anything else, but you're right. There were a lot of disbursements this period, and I appreciate you getting them done.
Sure. If I can clarify, Mike, I do have off the top of my head, I know that those tax revenues are stronger than the same period in 2020, as well as the budget.
Oh, good. Good. That's good to know.
I
Dave.
appreciate the comment, though.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I think that there's interest to know as we return back to normal, the assumptions about the, COVID and working from home and missing out on some of the local income tax things, the impact, whether I guess we were pleasantly surprised that,
Yep.
that it wasn't as impactful. Sorry, that's Marty calling me.
I'll have a,
Marty, I tried. David,
I'll
I
have
tried
a
to call
vanilla and
Marty
chocolate ice cream cone, please.
There you go.
Um,
Susan, have you tried to reach out to Marty?
I have, and I've gotten voicemail on both his home phone and his cell phone. So I'll try again now that he's calling
Are
me.
you-
Maybe I'll.
Are you calling the 610-405?
Oh, don't say the rest of it. Don't say the rest of it.
Yeah. That's right. We're in a public meeting.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
Yes, I
I-
am. Yes.
okay. I have a couple of questions. Is it okay if I ask a couple?
Sure.
Thank you. Dave, I was looking at batch 4 of 7, page 1. I'm just curious, with the pension committee meetings, is it possible that are these, or maybe Rick or Derek could say, don't do a batch of these advertisements? Are they always advertised individually, Rick?
Yes, we do. We advertise them, and I think they advertise for the rest of the year. If I'm not
Yeah.
mistaken.
Okay, all right,
Yeah.
so it's for the rest of the year. Okay, that's fine. Same page, Dave, vendor number 4462. It just says project cancellation. And I was just curious what project got canceled? Was it something?
Must just been somebody had an addition or something they were gonna do and they probably just said, we're not gonna do
Yeah,
it.
judging
by
Something
the-
like that,
Okay,
Michelle.
perfect.
They had,
Judging by
they had
shade.
applied for permitting, and Lynn had taken their order, and we processed the payment, and then we had to return it.
I see, okay. And I think that was, I think that there was one more question I had. I'm just looking here real quick. No, I guess that was it, actually. That's the only question I had.
All right.
Hey, Rick, where's Rick? If, in the case, it's a minor amount of dollars, but policy related, or at least our practice in the office, if someone submits a building permit application and the department goes through a review, and it may not have been the case, this one, that the application may have come in and then 2 days later they said, no, we're withdrawing it. But if the application has come in and the department has gone through a review and is essentially ready to issue the permit or has comments for to rectify the permit before it can be issued, I wonder if it's not fair and prudent business that if they call it off at the last minute after the review's been done, that there shouldn't be any refund because we provided the service essentially. It's a thought, and it may be not reasonable, but I thought I'd mention, see what your thoughts are.
I'll check with Mark to see how often it happens.
It probably doesn't happen often,
Yeah.
Rick, I expect, so.
Because typically, you don't pay the fee until the permit's ready to be issued.
Yeah,
I remembered there was one other issue I had in the expenditure register. I can't find it off the top of my head. It's the SBCA. There's an SBCA line item. And do we know anything about that? Was it just a stray that was picked up, or do we know if we're going to be able to recuperate any of that money? It was about $700, Dave.
I don't recall the detail on that one. I can look
Okay.
into that for you, though.
That's fine. Thank you.
Mhm.
I don't have any other questions.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion to accept the receipts.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we graciously accept the receipts and approve the expenditures as presented in the expenditure register and as summarized in the treasurer's report. I can read.
I'd second that.
Thank you. Any further comments on this from the board? Any public comment? Hearing none, I will call the question. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. 4-0. Thank you, everybody.
I
Next
would
is,
say, David, the next item, you might as well just table it.
Marty's trying to call in. Excuse me, I just want to let you know. So if I'm working with him now, so he should be coming in shortly.
Okay. Maybe we can just skip
Move
down
it.
to new business and swing back around when Marty comes in. So let's look at the first item on our new business. Consider stormwater agreement and the in-law suite agreement for 1640 Eldridge Drive.
Mr. Chairman, I'd move that the board authorize the chairman to sign the stormwater management operation and maintenance agreement and in-law suite agreement for 1640 Eldridge Drive.
Okay. Hey, Rick, I have a question. When we issue the in-law suite permits, when the in-laws move out, does our ordinance require that space can be converted back to dwelling, right?
They
Yeah.
sign an agreement.
And
Yeah.
do we follow up with any of that?
It's
Ever?
recorded against the deed, so
Okay.
they're supposed to record it back.
Okay, great. Thank you. Any other questions about this? Any questions from the members of the public? All right. Do we have a motion?
You have a motion.
I second the motion.
Okay, I'm going to call the question. All's in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No. Motion carries 4-0. Do we have Marty yet? Susan, you're on mute.
Sorry, yes, he's here right now. He
Okay.
just called in. So Marty, I think phone number ending in 305. Marty, hit *6 to unmute yourself.
Is he unmuted?
Marty, hit *6 on your telephone to unmute yourself.
Ground control to Major Marty. Ground control.
All right.
That is
Take
him.
your
but-
protein pills. May God be on your side.
Moving on to new business. Item B is another stormwater management agreement for 527 Beaumont Circle and 1440 Linden Lane. Any observations, questions about that?
No,
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, I would move that the board authorize the chairman to sign stormwater management operation and maintenance agreements for
Second.
7 Beaumont and 1440 Linden.
Second.
Thank you, Michelle. Thanks, Mark. Mike, any further comments on this? Any comments from the public? I'm going to call the question. All those in favor? Aye.
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 No. Motion carries 4-0. All right. Do we have Marty yet?
Marty, please hit *6 on your telephone to unmute yourself.
Sometimes people hit the pound button by mistake. We're so accustomed to
Star
hitting the
button.
pound.
And 6 is
The
with a little
asterisk.
round thing at the bottom.
Yep.
All right, Chairman Pelosi, Shuey, you're managing this vote very well.
I'm just going to go with that. I'm not going to go there. Okay. So we have a considered recommendation for trailer replacement. Mark, you're with us. You want to take us through? Thank you for the pictures. It looks a little bit like my 51 Chevy.
I was thinking of you when I was looking at this.
Yeah, it's a trailer we use to move the heavy equipment, paver, roller, and so forth. We were going to replace last year. We pushed it off till this year. It's just time to go. I would like to entertain it. If you do approve it, that you allow me to put it on muni bid, and I think we'll get a good chunk of change for it.
Do you have any idea what it's worth? at all?
He had one down there that he had, it was beat up, and he wanted 8 for that. So I'm
Wow.
gonna put ours off at 10. And
Okay.
I think it will end up around 15, I'm hoping.
Wow, that'd be great.
Great. Can I just first of all point out that, Mark, the fact that you deferred this for a year is really very greatly appreciated. Thank you very much for making do, and it is time for a new one.
Is that a motion, Michelle?
Yes, I authorize the Public Works Director. I would like to make a motion to purchase the Rogers trailer in the amount of $35,261.
Thank you.
Second motion.
Thank you, John.
Oh, that also says to authorize the Public Works Director to put it on municipal bid.
Yes. All right, any further questions? Any questions from the public? Going to call the question. All those in favor, aye.
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 Opposed, no. Motion carries 4-0. I'm assuming we still don't have Marty. Marty, are you there? Is that a cell phone?
No, that's, yes, that is.
Yeah, I guess a text
But
wouldn't.
I actually, I mean, I can't unmute him. I have a button that says ask to unmute, which I've hit several times. I've asked Dave to hit it thinking maybe, okay, Dave did too. And
Come
when you
on,
hit that button, it
Marty,
does,
come
it does
on, you
give them
can do it,
instructions on
Marty.
how to unmute.
We have a neighbor we can call. All right, next thing on our agenda is to consider recommendation of replacement of the side discharge spreader. I found out what that is, you guys. It's the spreader at the back of the truck that allows you to go right or left when you're putting the stuff on the roadway. Mark, you want to
There you go.
talk to us about the need of that?
Yeah, this unit here, we use it for doing the sides of the roads,
Yeah.
the trails. It's very convenient because like you said, you can just shoot it out the side and the guys just out. The one we're looking at will be, it'll attach to the skid steer, which will even make it more versatile when we're doing ditch and side work.
Oh, good.
The main problem is that they no longer make that item, so I cannot get repair parts for it.
Okay.
Can you sell it?
Yeah, I'm gonna sell it on use a bid and I'm looking a couple $1,000. Matter of fact, I got a township that might just right on it first.
Oh, good, good.
That's
Someone want
basically
to make
it.
a motion?
Yeah, Mr.
Chairman,
Chair. Yeah, go ahead, John.
Chairman, I move that we authorize the purchase of the side discharge spreader Foley Cat in the amount of $8925.00 and authorize Public Works Director to put this piece of equipment on municipal bid and sell it to the highest bidder.
Any further comments? Every time you say fully cat, I think of fully cat, and it makes me cringe a little bit.
A little bit.
Second.
Any members of the public want to comment? Okay, all those in favor, aye.
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 Opposed, no. Motion carries 4-0. Thank you. Next item, consider a recommendation to revisit the Township Public Nuisance Ordinance as it relates to pipeline construction. There was a memo about this. Basically, the district attorney's office has filed a civil action against Energy Transfer using the nuisance ordinance or nuisance law regarding Energy Transfer's activities through the state. We have a nuisance ordinance, and the motion is just asking our codes department to look at our current nuisance ordinance in the context of Energy Transfer construction to see if there are any changes that we might need to make, particularly with regard to pipeline construction, possibly in the future. So that's what that's the essence of the motion.
David, I'm a little confused about this. They want the board to pursue revisiting. I'm a little surprised we don't have a specific suggested revision to the ordinance, either from the pipeline task force or from staff, rather than just a motion for us to revisit.
Yeah, that's maybe poorly worded. I don't think they're asking the board to revisit. They're asking the board to ask staff to revisit. And I think the pipeline task force, they don't feel that they're particularly code experts. But in light of what's going on with the district attorney, they would like our staff experts to look at our nuisance ordinance to see, if is it consistent with other ordinances in the context of the construction. That's the.
We had talked about this, and if you recall, pre-COVID, we had talked about updating our noise ordinance. And then also, we're also adopting a simpler noise ordinance for construction that basically a police officer could cite him. You wouldn't have to have a meter. At that time, the board agreed that COVID hit, and since it was controversial, the board agreed that they were not going to do or consider any of those type of controversial ordinances. For meeting again on the 15th, I can put them back on the agenda, and we could revisit them. But
Would it be advantageous to have the pipeline task force and the staff put their heads together and come up with something specific?
Yeah, I think that's what the motion, I mean, that if you're recommending that be the way to go, the motion is basically asking the board to support revisiting, and so if that's the right way to do it, have the codes department look at it, visit with the pipeline task force, talk to them, and then come back to the board with recommendations. That would work.
And keep the planning commission in that line of information share as well.
Absolutely.
All right, well, I would make a motion, but I don't remember it all.
Here, I can help with that. Mr. Chairman, I move that in light of recent consent decree by the Chester County District Attorney Deb Ryan, and given the proposed pipeline and other infrastructure projects underway and proposed in East Goshen Township, that the board pursue revisiting the current public nuisance ordinance as it relates to pipeline construction, maintenance, operations, and furthermore, to identify any gaps in the current ordinance that would need to be addressed so the township can utilize any and all municipal enforcement and mitigation powers in order to protect the health, safety, and welfare of our citizens.
I would modify that to instead of saying, with taking John's comment into consideration, that the board, instead of pursue, strike that and just say, ask our code staff, pipeline task force, and planning commission to revisit the current public.
That's what I meant.
Very good. I'll second that motion.
Okay. Any further comment?
No.
Any comments from the public?
Christina has her hand up, David.
Christina?
Thank you. I think you just summarized it. We were basically asking for more or less a gap analysis because the public nuisance ordinance, as it's written, falls under section 195.45, which is stormwater management. And I think that we were concerned that there might be some issues with, for instance, air emissions or dust particulates that aren't covered under that with the new Adelphia infrastructure that's coming. And so we wanted to just take a second look to see if there were any areas that we were currently missing and just add those
Good.
to what's already on the books.
That helps. That's insightful. Thanks, Christina.
Thanks, Christina.
Mm-hmm.
Any other members of the public? All right, I'm going to call the question. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Hi.
Opposed, no.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. Thank you, 4-0. And Rick, I'll leave it to you and Derek to kind of sort out the details of the process of, who looks at it going forward first. And, it might be good. Christina added some color there that might be helpful before codes looks at it to maybe meet with the pipeline task force to get, consider their specific concerns. I think that would be helpful. Next item is to consider recommendations to revisit the township public nuisance ordinance. We just did that. I didn't cross it out. Consider a request for assistance with stormwater runoff from the O'Keefe property. We have a letter from the O'Keefes. I know, Mark, you've spent a bit of time out there. Thank you for the background that you've given us and the photographs of the property after we took down the trees and cleaned up there. It looked really nice. I'm not sure where else we go with this. It seems like, I don't know how much is the township's responsibility further than what we've already done. So,
Well,
Mark, do you have any specific recommendation, Mark, at this point in time is from Public Works or as Director of Public Works on this matter?
Well, like I said, the water runs downhill. and they get the water. And yes, we did take the trees down that came down in a storm and clean them up. Problem is, when we get those 2 and 3 inch rains, they do get inundated with water. Mr. O'Keefe recently had his driveway paved and they put like a swale in it to capture the water to get out and around his house. He also talked about some trees that were in the back that crossed the pipeline. We can cut those up for sure. But I just have to get a hold of the pipeline as a courtesy thing, let them know what we're doing. But as for the water, I mean, the water's always gone there. No, we didn't do anything other than took the trees that were damaged, we took those off. There is one dead tree about 6 inches in diameter in the bridle path. And that's on Kevin's list to do. So they may even be there as early as tomorrow. But that's about all I got. I mean, the history is there was a dead tree. We cut it down. I told our guy where to drop it. And the homeowners, I believe it was the son, came out and wanted to drop a different way. We dropped the tree. Property owner wasn't happy. So we went back, cut everything up in log length, dragged the chipper down in there, chipped all the brush, left the logs, and we're done. I told Mr. O'Keefe, I'm done. We're not doing any more work.
And Mark, those trees that were taken down, you just left the stumps and the roots in place, so it didn't disturb the ground. There wasn't any new erosion potential.
No.
You left the stumps in place.
Yep, stumps are in
Okay.
place. And it actually breaks. Some of it goes away, it goes one way, and the other goes the other way. He's going to get the water. I can't stop that. And the other thing is, we go in and do something with this bridle path, and it's gonna be like whisper down the lane. So I would just recommend we'll leave as is. We'll take the dead trees out, which is only one. I'll cut the trees up that you showed me on the pipeline, and then we'll call it a day.
And I went out there with Mark to look at the situation. I mean,
Oh, good.
it's, there's just nothing that we, at this point, I don't think that we should be doing anything. If we do as Mr. O'Keefe and Mrs. O'Keefe have asked, we're gonna have to do it for everybody. And we've had damage done to our home as well with water. We had to pay for our own French drain system in our basement and our sump pumps, and we've paid when they've failed. And the fact is that they're not difficult homeowners. I think that they're just trying to look for whatever means they can
Yeah, sure.
help them with the situation. Unfortunately, I think that there's just nothing else we can do there, unfortunately.
Is there runoff that they're talking about, the drainage? Is the drainage coming specifically from a township property?
It's run, well,
Just they're downhill. That's the problem. Water runs downhill.
and they're down that hollow, like, we put curbing in, we raised it up additional 6-8 inches all the way around. So the water gets to the inlets from the street, so nothing street water. And then in the woods, we didn't take any stumps there or anything like that. We left everything in place, took the trees that were damaged out. And it just, the water comes down along the back of the pipeline onto his property. Behind his property is a legit wetland. So if that helps, I don't know.
Well, you'll keep us informed as you do the work that you indicated you'll do, and we'll see how the O'Keefes respond to that, and we'll keep our ears open.
And yeah, and I met with Mr. O'Keefe, and I said, look, if you're not happy with what I'm telling you, send a letter to the supervisors, and if they tell me to do something else, I will. But if we put that sock up in the woods, you have to replace that every 6 months. And like I said, the water's always been there. It's just we gotten deluges of rain. So
We don't have to take any action on this, do we?
Any
Dave?
fur- Yeah, no.
No action. Thanks, Mark.
yes, sir.
Mark, next on the agenda is to consider and discuss the proposed pipeline awareness ordinance. And I'll give you just a little bit of background. I think the Planning Commission has spent an inordinate amount of time. That the idea behind this was not to mimic the Chester County ordinance. It was to develop what we've called a pipeline awareness ordinance, so that if anyone's building a new subdivision in land development or commercial or any of the occupancies listed in the ordinance as it was drafted, that they be made aware of the fact that there's highly volatile liquid pipeline within a juxtaposed or a reasonable proximity to the development, and that it ought to be taken into consideration. They should be aware of it, and that the board and the planning commission should have an opportunity to look at the plan in the context of the location of the pipeline to see if there's any conditions that we would like to put under conditional use on where structures are placed and where egress and ingress might occur and things like that, just with our knowledge. We sent it off to Chester County Planning Commission. They came back kind of thinking that we might want to make it look more like their ordinance, and that's not
Right.
our thought process. So, we and the Pipeline Task Force has had input into this. And so my position is, I would like to make a motion that we approve the ordinance as drafted by our planning commission and presented to us Mike, you made a point earlier in a meeting about a lot of smart people putting this together and spending a lot of time on it. And, I think that we have to kind of go with our experts, Pipeline Task Force and the planning commission, and take their recommendations and go with it. So I'm going to make a recommendation and a motion that we approve the ordinance as presented originally by the planning commission.
And would that be a motion, David, to ask staff to authorize, we essentially authorizing advertisement then for a public meeting to consider approval or adoption?
Yeah, that's the next phase. That would be the next thing, right, Rick?
Yes.
Here, yep, that would be the motion to advertise a public meeting to consider that ordinance.
I would second that.
Any other, Michelle, you comfortable with that? Thank you, John.
I'm good.
Yeah,
Okay, any comments from the member of the public? Ernie, do you have any comments? You're on.
No, I don't. I'm fine. I'm here. If you had any questions, I don't have any comments. I could add, there's been questions as to what you might want to look at in the study. And we probably should have put in it, but the PIPA recommendations that give you guidance for baseline ordinances and also for new development that we could help should someone need to have context in the study. But no, I think I have no other comments other than that.
So if we advertise it and have a public meeting, everyone will get a final chance to provide comments to amend it. So that's what we're doing tonight, is approving the advertisement of the public meeting for the future. So
That's correct, Dave. I have one other thing I promised to bring back to the board and to the Pipeline Task Force. There's a question on normal residential authorizations and construction, and that is the ordinance does not apply to normal residential alterations and constructions when just a building or zoning permits required, such as home alterations, additions, remodeling, swimming pools, sheds, detached garages, etc. And that's from Mark Gordon, a zoning officer, who sent, I think, that out to pretty much the planning commission, the task force, and some of the members of the staff, and you, David, that we did verify that in the ordinance. That's the last request I had that I verified.
Okay, great. All right, thank you. All right, I'm going to call the question. All those in favor of the motion, aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries. Thank you. Next item is to consider the 2021 sewer rate adjustments, and we'll have Rick, Derek, and Dave take us through the calculations.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, I'll start by saying a little bit of what I've written, which is we're recommending new sewer rates of $35.61 fixed and $9.70 per 1,000 gallons variable. Those are compared to rates of the current rates, which are $32.41 fixed and $9.13 total 1,000 gallons variable. Basically, the change would be $169.83 for an average single family detached home per quarter versus $152.62, which was a year ago. That's about $17 that we're asking. this is including the adjustment that the board discussed last March 2nd, 2020, to recoup the cost of pushing back. It's the delay in timing of instituting the new rates, which is 34,000 roughly total of the entire recoup cost. So that being said, I won't reiterate everything that I've written, but if we kept current rates unchanged to meet our budget, and this is an adjusted budget, which I've assumed that we have a decent balance. We've always had a fund balance. We still have a cushion, but to delve into that a little bit, I'm going to take it down about $100,000. We're going to leave rates the same. Your average bill would be $158.75. Now, if we took and we met all of those obligations that we have in our current budget for 2021, we would be up to about $175.79 for a per quarter bill. I'm advocating that we split that difference and come out to $169.83 for the average bill based on my calculations, which still puts us in fourth place out of a number of recent townships. So Willistown, Westtown, Westchester, East Whiteland, West Goshen, East Goshen, Euclid, West Whiteland, and Tredyffrin. So we're still roughly in the same spot as we were a year ago in ranking amongst those exact same townships for average sewer bill quarterly. And what I'm starting with on my calculation is the total sewer budget, making my adjustment, and they're broken into fixed and variable costs. So those portions to fund that, we're looking at the number of total units, which currently is 6627. And we're looking at the breakdown between the fixed and the variable costs. And to cover those and to leave still a $57,000 shortfall, roughly, is the $35.61 and the $970 variable, which is what I'm proposing.
Hey, Rick, I have a question about we have a sewer fund balance right now. So what we're really saying is we're kind of splitting the difference here, and we'll still have a $57,000 shortfall that we'll be taking out of the sewer fund balance. That's correct? You're on mute, Rick. Can the sewer fund balance be used for any of the sewer repair stuff, or is that separate?
Separate.
Good question.
We can look into that.
Good question, David.
Yeah. All right. I don't want to erode the fund balance by 182,000, and that's what happens if we leave the rates the same right now. And $17 isn't, hopefully, that's a fairly reasonable increase given the infrastructure cost that we're going to have for. We're still going to end up with having to use some of the sewer fund balance to offset. So we're not hitting our residents with a huge increase. We're still using some of the sewer fund balance to defer costs. So I'll come out in support of the recommendation. Anybody else have any comments, John?
Yeah, I have a question. I'm going to display my ignorance here. The fourth paragraph, the highlighted words there say that there's a decrease in consumption of 1 million gallons per quarter, 1.3%, and yet we're going to raise costs. What are we looking at? Fixed costs being overwhelming, Dave, or what?
Yeah.
How can we use less and have to pay more, I guess is what I'm saying.
It's a great question, John. We have an existing infrastructure, and we have existing upkeep costs and maintenance of that system. The problem is with COVID, especially, commercial use is down enormously, and that is putting more of a brunt on average dwellings. So we're using less water, we have the same costs, so rates have to go up to maintain that level of funding.
Okay, so fixed costs are much larger than variable costs then?
Yes.
Okay. Second question. When are we putting this into play?
This would be for the third quarter, correct, Rick?
The July billing.
So can we give people more of a warning, or do we have to do this right away?
when you
If we- Go ahead, Rick.
If you adopt it tonight, Chris was sending out letters to people that have high consumption, letting them know that it's coming, and we can get it out on a newsletter
Yeah.
and post on the website.
So we're giving them a month's notice.
Yes, yeah.
At least.
That's, if you recall, normally we would do this on the second quarter of the month. And we would get the information the last minute in March. The board would approve it on a Tuesday night and the bills will go out the following Wednesday or Thursday. So this time they'll have at least a month's notice.
And Chris has
We're
actually
noticing-
already sent the high consumption bills for the second quarter. So people are already notified. She's already getting feedback on disputes, whether they think they owe it or not. So, sorry,
Okay,
Michelle, go
I'm
ahead.
good.
The part, and correct me if I'm wrong, Dave or Rick, but part of the fixed cost is also agreements that, for instance, our agreement we have with West Goshen Municipal Authority for the gallonage that we subscribe to through our agreement, which is a fixed amount. It's not on our volume the way it is with our customers. Is that correct, Dave and Rick?
We have both fixed costs with West Goshen and variable costs.
Okay.
And if you recall, this also includes enough money so we're not losing money in this year.
Okay.
When we pushed it back in April, in March, the board agreed to push it back. They wanted to make sure that we were made whole for 2021 as regards to the revenue.
Okay. Question, and that is, if consumption returns to previous levels and that 1 million gallon per quarter goes back to being those prior level, does that mean that our the gap, or at least the difference will and the decrease in our operating balance will increase once if we presuming that we would come back to pre-COVID, I guess, consumption levels, that 1 million gallons per quarter, if that goes back up, does that help our operating deficit irrespective of the sewer rate increase?
Yes.
Okay.
Correct.
One of the concerns I have about infrastructure, particularly as it relates to municipal governments that operate wastewater treatment plants, there's, at least in prior generations and still going on in some municipalities, there is a great reluctance to increase sewer rates on customers, and the municipality, or through its municipal authority, will continue to subsidize rates to the detriment of the infrastructure and the operation. And I know rates, an increase, as I saw it, the increase actually as proposed, Dave, would not be 15.2%, it would be 10.7%, at least as related to the difference between 158.75 and 169.83. You may have used another delimiter there, or another bit of data, but I know it's a rate increase, it's substantial, but I don't think a municipality or municipal authority can afford very long to subsidize. So yeah, I get trying to split it down the middle. We'll take some of the hit, but you have to remember also that our capital reserve program for sewer is under great duress with what we have going on. And I've discussed with the municipal authority about increasing our capital contribution to not only maintain our capital reserve, sewer capital reserve in a sustainable level, but also anticipate some of the things that are, for instance, occurring with the emergency repairs that we have now in the vicinity of the Hershey's Mill Estates. This infrastructure is expensive, and it can only be paid for effectively. Put the stimulus aside, which is a one-time, hopefully a generational thing that won't happen again. Putting that aside, we can only stretch it so far, and the customer ultimately has to pay for it. This is one of the things that has driven some of the decisions by other municipalities to sell their infrastructure, that they feel that the costs are becoming and the resources required by the municipality are becoming overwhelming. And that's why there are entities like American Water and Aqua PA that are buying facilities now and taking them over, which also gives a concern with rate increases and the PUC oversight of those entities. But there is a cascading effect here that when we talk about splitting a rate increase down the middle with the financial picture that we currently have with our sewer system, there is a potential there that we will get our operational financial picture in further duress. It's under stress now, but get into a very stressful situation. So that's something I think the consumer should know, that our resident customers, that we want to keep these rates as low as possible, but we just simply can't subsidize it ad infinitum. So it's a little bit of a monologue there, but it's something that I think is important for our resident customers to know about the system and the true cost of infrastructure. We see it in our other infrastructure costs of our utilities, whether it's water, whether it's electric, whether it's cable. The costs are going up, and there's obviously direct contact that a customer can have with the township to express concern or otherwise. There's less opportunity for that with some of the other infrastructure costs that continue to go up. But I just remind us all that subsidizing a piece of infrastructure is potentially dangerous with the financial future of the entity. So I'll leave it at that.
Thanks, Mike.
Can
Is there
I respond real quick?
Sure.
Thanks, Mike. I appreciate that. And, I've been doing this for a little bit over a month now. So I'm kind of trying to figure out what's been done. I appreciate your point, and I noticed this as well. I believe it's a point of methodology to the sewer rate calc, and that is certainly something that can be addressed because we're really looking at 1 year's worth of budget, right? Yeah. We're looking at 1 year variable fixed cost. Takes no account of future large fixed costs. Yeah. That's a conversation that we can have looking at the long range planning, coming up with future budgets, and I appreciate your point.
Yeah. Thanks, Dave.
This is $17 a year increase. Is that correct?
Per quarter.
Per quarter.
17 a quarter, right? Okay, that's what
Yes.
I thought.
Mike, I'll just comment. You used the word subsidized. I think makes everybody's aware is the township does not subsidize either the refuse program or the sewer. All the costs are borne by those two programs are borne by the users. So if we're subsidizing it, the residents themselves are subsidizing. It's not township dollars. It's all sewer dollars.
Right, Rick. But if we were to keep our finances whole, we would go with the larger increase and instead of halfway, which is what we're doing tonight. So that's the reference, my point of reference for subsidizing. We're not capturing the full cost of what we see ahead here. We're only paying for half of it.
Just
We're
making
only
sure
charging our customers half of it.
it's an awareness situation for the public to be aware where we are, kind of stake in the ground going forward, to Dave's point, I think so.
Am I wrong with that, Rick, though, with that thinking?
No, you're right. This is the same approach we did last year, though.
Yes.
We
yes.
split the baby because
yes.
in reality, we really don't need $1 million in the sewer
operating. Right.
It's nice to have it, though. Generally, I agree with you, Mike. But I will say that because of COVID, things just aren't normal.
Yeah, and I get that.
Next year, probably we'll be back to the consumption rates that we're used to. And in the meantime, there are people in the township who probably can use the break.
Yes,
so
yes.
I support this.
Yes, and understand, and I'm completely sympathetic with that because I'm not a public sewer customer, but I'm I'm understanding of that as well. And that's why this kind of Solomon solution, I appreciate kind of splitting it in the middle. I get that completely.
Okay.
All right.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes,
I'd like to move that we adopt Resolution 2021-34B, the revised fee schedule, to amend the township sewer rates to $35.61 per quarter fixed and $9.70 per 1,000 gallons variable.
Second that.
any other further discussion from the board?
No.
Open up for any public comment on the sewer rates going forward?
There's none.
Hearing no comments, I'm going to call the question. All those in favor, aye.
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 No. Motion carries 4-0. Thank you. Thanks, Dave, for your work on that. The final is to consider a proposal from Gannett Fleming for ongoing project management services on the Milltown Dam project. Rick, do you want to comment, or Mark, who should comment?
I guess the good news is in February, we got notice from DEP that our application for Milltown was complete and they were starting to review it. So we have gotten comments back from the Army Corps of Engineers. We got to do a public notice once the Corps approves it, and the Corps will then issue their permit. Again, it's a joint permit. We haven't gotten any comments back for DEP, and touch wood, hopefully they don't have any. And once the Corps issues their permit, we'll get the DEP permit. We then need to put the project out for bid. So I've asked Gannett Fleming to give us a proposal to, we're going to do a little bit of engineering on the front end. One of the issues we ran into at Hershey's Mill was data on what the soil conditions are for some of the infrastructure we're putting in, some of the boardwalk, some of the bridges, they call them, to get over the stream, that type of stuff. So we have a little money in there for that. We have money in the budget, in the proposal, to take it to bid the project and do the contract management of the base contract for the construction. And then, because we don't know how many project meetings we'll have or how much inspections, we got them as not to exceed numbers.
Rick, is any of this covered by the bond funds, or is it?
It's a mixture between the bond money and the grant money, because
Okay.
again, we're using bond funds for the dam breach, and we're using grant money for the landscaping.
Okay.
So it's a mixture of funds.
When you look at
I
what,
want to be clear here. We're looking, I have two memorandums. One is for phase one, $17,400. And the other one is, I guess the whole project, I don't know. It's, that motion would accept $216,000, 670 for 1, 2, and 3, not to exceed 74,000 for task 4, and not to exceed 158,540 for task 5. That comes to about $350,000, doesn't it?
449.
Huh?
449 to 10.
It's a little more than
I'm
that.
sorry, I lost a 1.
The
Are
task
we
1,
voting
2,
on
and
that tonight?
yeah, the task 1, 2, and 3 are fixed costs. In other words, we're locked in for the $28,000 for the additional engineering to try and eliminate concerns about the what the subsoil is like. $43,000 for the bidding process, and then once we get into the management of the contract, $144,000 for the management of the change orders, the review of the shop drawings, all the rest of the stuff it entails there. And then meetings, we don't know how many project meetings we're going to have. We don't know if we can do them virtual or have in-person meetings. And so they are not to exceed number of 74,000. And then the actual inspection, in truth, depends on the contractor. If you have a bad contractor, you're going to be out there more often. If you have a good contractor, you could be out there less. That's
Okay,
why-
so Rick,
Those-
this is the 450,000 here. This is exclusive of the contractor's price, right?
Yes. This is to make sure the plan that we're permanent for gets built in accordance with that plan.
Are we budgeted for this?
We have funds in the between the capital reserve and the bond fund. We have money in the bond fund. There's money in for the grant money. And based on Dave's calculations, we're probably about $260,000 short, which will have to come out of the capital reserve fund.
How much is in capital reserve now, Dave?
Close to like
$4.5
About $800,000 more
Yeah.
than we need.
Yeah, we have a $4.5 million balance in cap reserve.
All right, so, and we have to do this, huh?
Well, the board agreed that we're going to breach the dam, and the previous board agreed that we're going to make world-class facilities in both of these parks when we're done. And so
I don't
therefore,
really have a problem with that, but it's a lot of money.
yeah, yes, it is. Dams are expensive. That's why we're getting rid of them.
Damn expensive.
And we also get credit for stormwater management, Mike, for compliance with our
Yeah, yeah,
SWM4.
that is the saving grace. Our MS4 requirement,
MS4, right.
we're being able to use these two projects to satisfy our permit requirements for the next 5 years.
Yeah, those are important credits. There's no doubt about it. And I can say that from my prior life. We were where I was previously with the MS4. I don't know how we're going to satisfy what DEP was looking for us there in East Bradford Township. This is a great thing to be able to point towards this one and get the credits we need. You talk about a moving target with MS4 and agencies like DEP, but that's a real positive, Rick.
Just to follow up on that, Mike, I 100% agree with you. And I would say a lot of municipalities are having to do a lot more projects to satisfy
Yes.
MS4. So
Yeah.
to be able to take care of the PRPs with this, with these two projects alone, to me, is worth its weight in gold when you're looking at the extensive nature of the Clean Water Act and the MS4. So
Yeah. And to pick up what Derek has said, folks, is that some municipalities actually are having to contrive projects to get the necessary credits they need to get the MS4 permits. When I say contrive, talking about re-engineering existing stormwater basins and creating new circumstances in the municipality to almost like creating a new wetland area. So that we're very fortunate to have a targeted credit here that is recognized by DEP. And then obviously it's expensive, John. There's no doubt about it. This, when I see engineering proposals like this, of course, this is the soup to nuts engineering part. It takes us all the way through oversight of the contractor. It's a lot of money, but thank goodness for the grants that will help. But at least it's a targeted project that is beneficial for that potential big stick that DEP could throw at a municipality should it be audited by the in the system. So it's a real plus.
All right.
I did want to ask one question, Rick. Under task one, and this is only, I say only, it's $28,000. But it says under field investigation, a limited geotechnical exploration program is proposed. It's proposed, it's not required. What's our risk of proceeding without that $28,000 of test pits? And that's also been a modified 28K because Public Works is going to be doing some of the work there. But is that what would happen? Are we going to, is there a potential we're going to sink down to the core of the earth if something happens here and the soils are not as stable as we're hoping, or what?
No, the concern is that the people that are bidding the work will then have very little data on what's down there, which means they have to make assumptions.
On fill and that sort of thing? Okay.
Yeah, so by giving them data on, there's 5 feet of silt and then you're on solid ground, it allows them to price out the structures better.
All right. And under task 4, when I looked at this for meetings, project coordination meetings, I'm presuming that the parties involved with that $74,000 potential total cost for these meetings is staff related, consultants, agency oversight, that sort of thing.
It would be, in other words, from our side, it would be the township staff. From Gannett Fleming's side, depending on, it could be the landscape architect because we're dealing with a landscape fixture. It could be the geotechnical guy or the hydrology guy. So it's whoever they need to send down to facilitate the meeting,
At $3,700 for an in-person meeting and $2,100 for a virtual sounds, gee, I'd like to charge for my virtual meeting at that rate. I mean, am I being silly? But it just seems like a lot of money for a meeting, and all of a sudden there's this fixed amount. We had a meeting for 15 minutes in person. It was $3,100.
Now, these meetings usually last longer than that, and then it does include the preparation of the minutes, the documentations, and all the whatever else goes with it. So,
Can we have that specified a little bit more clearly? Because I don't want them to come back at us and say, well, we met for an hour, so we're charging you twice. I mean, I don't want these meetings to be, can we say meetings lasting up to a certain number of hours, like 2 hours?
well, this is a actual project meeting. In other words, it doesn't include if I call with a question, or Mark and I, or more, and now it's going to be Mark and Derek, contact Gannett Fleming with it. There's a problem. We need to look at this. This is a scheduled project meeting.
Right.
It would typically be 1 a month throughout the course of the project. And you try and limit them.
Well, like I said, like Mike said, that was the one thing that really stood out to me. And I don't like the fact that we don't have any parameters on it. I'm afraid that they're going to try to, they might move the bar a little bit on us. And I'd like it to be a little bit more firmly stated. That's something that we can at least put in this contract.
Okay.
To include agendas, minutes, and, a certain, time frame.
Michelle, and I'm with you with the concern. I recognize Gannett Fleming has been with us the whole way. They've got the data bank and the all the backstory. They're a solid consulting company, but at times when we're seated on a board the way we are, I feel like kind of a prisoner in a cell with very low light or no lights, and I'm kind of just rattling at the cage, and nobody's listening because there's not a thing I can do about it. I just feel a little bit powerless with the numbers because I don't know all the backstory with how it works. And
do we want to make a motion that we
thank you.
refer the contract back to staff, Dave, Rick, and Derek to maybe negotiate terms and conditions of the contract more clear for the board? Can we make that motion?
I think I would be more comfortable with that.
Okay.
Money.
And by the way, as we look at attachment 2, they've already given us our rates for 2022.
Yeah, they're already increased.
Yeah, we've had all other consultants work with us and hold our rates. Attorneys, engineering firms, including Pannoni. Maybe Derek and Rick, you can at least give it a shot and say, come on, throw us a bone here. We've got a good relationship here. Hold the line a little bit. Now, so we'll just bill them a few more hours. See, that's that prisoner in the dark cell.
Exactly.
but
Mike, if I can help, if I could jump in, Mike.
Yeah, Mark.
Bill, I do most of the inspections. If I see any problems, then I'll call Eric and we'll discuss it over the phone, send them pictures, and, so we don't have to have the meetings in person. So that's what basically I think we'll do at Milltown would be, I'll be full-time inspection. And then anything I need technical, I will reach out to Eric. So that should cut down the cost.
Well, I appreciate what you guys would be able to do. It's
Yeah.
just that, in the seat that we're in, we just don't have all the information yet. We want to be responsible with our dollars of our residents on these matters. And, there are many questions we ask that we not even sure we're asking the right questions, but we'll leave it to you guys to do the best you can.
Mike, we'll take a look at it for sure. Just to point out, task 4 project coordination meetings, it does specify they will take care of minutes. So we can make it a little bit more clear and see what we can come up with as far as negotiating prices for sure. But I just wanted to put that out there.
All right. Thanks, Derek.
Thank
Susan pointed that out to me, so I appreciate it.
So I believe that the motion on the table was to refer this contract back to staff for clarification, David.
Yeah, to improve the terms and conditions. And I think we should be able to hold the rates for 2 years. I mean, that would be one of my recommendations. So.
Good point. I'll second that motion.
Okay, so all right. I'll yeah, go ahead, David.
Okay. So do we need I guess we need
You're
it.
tabling it and we want to report back.
Yes.
All right, great.
So
We vote
we
on
need
that.
a second on that and a vote.
John seconded.
Yeah. But we're all in agreement on that anyway, so.
Any
Call the
ma-
question.
Aye.
Well, comments to the public. Hearing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor, aye.
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 Opposed, no. Motion carries 4-0.
Thanks, folks. Thanks, Rick, Derek, Mark.
I'm gonna open I'm gonna skip and run into the public comment where it.
Well, hold on. I do have one other matter, David, if I might. And Chief Grant Everhart is on the line, and he wanted to, if I'm not mistaken, Grant, give us a little bit of a brief of the incident that occurred at Sunoco at the Boot Road Station. Is that by chance why you're joining us tonight?
So that is sort of fresh on our plate from last evening. The original request was, I noted in the April meeting minutes that there were some questions from the supervisors for the fire company. And I responded to Rick, gave him some updates, and hopefully that answered some of the questions. But also brought to mind that we could attend a meeting, sort of give you a quick review of our monthly operations report and answer any questions you have. If you have questions about last night's incident that we can answer, we're happy to do so. Bob Fleming, president of the fire company, is on as well.
Yeah, sorry, Bob. I should have recognized you as president of the fire company. Thank you.
Yeah, let me, if I could just jump in for a second, and then we'll turn things over to Grant. And obviously, we hadn't planned on having questions about the incident last night at the pump house connected with the pipeline, but we're certainly willing to talk about what we know at this point. Grant is a very appropriate person to do that in light of the fact that he was the incident commander at the incident last night. And I will tell you, in my affiliation with Goshen Fire Company, as a resident of the townships involved here, and having chaired the Chester County Local Emergency Planning Committee for almost 30 years, I was very pleased that Grant was there and available last night as incident commander, and also that Frank Sullivan from the county was there and available as the hazmat chief for the county. So we had the right people there. And I will also tell you there'll be follow-up that will take place at the county. We will be reviewing the incident at the July LEPC meeting, Local Emergency Planning Committee meeting. I can also tell you it's in all likelihood, we're also going to be reviewing it at the Public Safety Pipeline Safety Advisory Board that the commissioners put together a while ago. So I think there are things that we can learn from the incident, and as you'll hear from Grant, things worked out well last night, but we want to make sure we learn everything we can from an incident. But what I wanted to say, just to take a couple minutes tonight, is once again, we want to thank you on behalf of the fire company for the support that East Goshen Township has for many, many years provided to the fire company. We thank you for the opportunity we have to service the community. Our primary response territory, obviously, we cover 4 townships, but the major township we cover, the major area we have is East Goshen Township. And with that in mind, you are a primary partner in all that we do, and we're here committed to make sure we do all the right things. Time flies. I'm actually now in my 4th year as president of the fire company. Sort of hard to believe that. For the first 3 years, I had the privilege of having Nancy Keslick as vice president, and most recently, Ted Harrison IV is now the vice president. We're working together. We're moving things forward. And throughout this meeting, I almost thought I should have put tick marks on a piece of paper how many times I heard COVID mentioned. Obviously, COVID has been a major challenge to public safety organizations like ours. We usually would have been by to have a presentation we do each year for each of the municipalities. Obviously, that didn't happen as a result of COVID and things going on. We're hoping to do that sometime later this summer. And with that in mind, we want to give you sort of the State of the Union message relative to Goshen Fire Company, but we also want to tell you the great success story we've had in managing COVID.
That's wonderful.
What's that?
That's wonderful. I'd like to hear what happened the other night.
Well, we'll get to that in just a second. So without going into a lot of detail, we have protected our people. So in turn, we could protect the community. If you look at other agencies, we've been sort of unprecedented in what we've been able to accomplish in protecting our people and their families from getting COVID. We have a pandemic committee that's met routinely throughout the COVID experience. And now that we're coming out of COVID, we're really moving into a time that we're starting to meet again in person. Our board is now meeting again in person, socially distanced in a big banquet hall that holds 160 people. We've had a couple meetings now, and we're going to continue having meetings of the actual membership of the fire company, move the apparatus outside and do it in big engine bays. So we're really making progress in that regard. One of the things I did want to let you know is we'll be moving into our normal strategic planning process within the next month. Basically, tomorrow night, we're meeting with the fire division. The next night, we're meeting with the EMS division. Then we'll be getting to the fire police division. So we'll be sharing those details with you. But a key thing is to recognize one of the most important things we've done in the fire company in recent years is to create the position of executive director and find the right person for that position. And we come in to tell you about our experience in COVID, and you hear about the grants we've applied for and how we've been able to shore things up financially during COVID. You're going to appreciate the great work that Grant continues to do. Grant, among his responsibilities, is the go-to guy that's there to make sure the townships are always informed and knowledgeable as to all things Goshen Fire Company. So at any point in time, if you have any questions, please do not hesitate to contact Grant, or for that matter, to contact myself or Ted Harrison IV. To wrap this up before Grant takes over, I've had the opportunity in Goshen Fire Company to work with some really great people over the years. I've had the opportunity in East Goshen Township to do that as well. Many years ago, I don't want to think how many years ago it was, I was on the planning commission for a period of time, and that's where I first met Rick Smith. And I can tell you every interaction I've had with Rick over the years as he's approaching the end of his tenure as long-term township manager, everyone has been professional, it's been courteous, and it's really been a passion and a commitment to the community. Getting back to the way we do things in Goshen Fire Company. There's things in Goshen Fire Company that the board approves. There's things the board recommends to the membership and the membership approves. And I want to announce tonight, to get it on the public record, that recently the board of directors of Goshen Fire Company recommended that we make Rick Smith an honorary member of Goshen Fire Company. He's been a great friend. He's been a great supporter of the fire company.
Great.
And that was unanimous of the board, and was also unanimous of the company. So with that in mind, we'll be following up more formally with that. But we did want to announce that and recognize Rick for all the great work he's done and the support he's had for the fire company. So with that in mind, I'll turn it over to Grant. If you have any questions about some of the information he supplied about information and data and so forth, he can do that. But otherwise, he can tell you what we know at this point about the call last night.
Dr. Fleming, thanks very much. President, Goshen Fire Company, really appreciate it. And Grant, I referred to you as chief, but that's because you were for so long, but you are the exec direct now. So thank you for that. Thanks, Bob.
Right, and I should point out, Grant still continues to be deputy chief.
Can't seem to get away from it. So anyway, thanks for your time. We were able to pull together our monthly report for the month of May pretty quickly today. Happy to say it was a fairly busy month, and the numbers were typical for this time of year. Fortunately, we did not have any serious incidents in East Goshen Township. We had 17 fire responses, 9 fire police responses, 141 EMS responses, for a total of 167 responses in the township. And that's against 395 total responses for the 4 townships that we cover. So about 42% of our calls occur in East Goshen Township. I think we're all pretty familiar with the volume of calls the volume of EMS calls we run. A lot of that's certainly based on the assisted living facilities in the township. It's reflected by the fact that 72% of our patients are over the age of 65. I think there was a question about how we bill for lift assists.
Yeah.
And we do. You know, if somebody subscribes to our EMS program, the lift assist would be included in that. If they do not, then we would bill them directly for the service. But since the prime insurance provider is Medicare, Medicare does not pay for lift assist, so that's an out-of-pocket expense for our, for the patient. And that explains why quite a large number of them do subscribe to our program. It is a very successful EMS subscriber program.
Very good.
If we do get a call for lift assist from a skilled care unit at Bellingham or Wellington or any of the other assisted livings where they should have the staff to provide that service, we then bill the facility for the call, not the patient. We see that as we're being hired to perform a service for a business as opposed to helping a resident of the community. So
are they being responsive to those reimbursement invoices, Grant?
Yes, they are. Before we entered that practice, we sent them a very, very clear letter as to the why and the how. And they actually, most of the directors, facility directors said, well, you shouldn't be getting calls from us for that kind of service.
Interesting.
So when it does happen, they've been very responsive.
Okay, that's a good report. We were not aware of that up until this moment. Or at least I was not aware of it.
Neither was I. It's very positive sounding.
Yeah. And truth be told, we get a lot of calls for lift assist that turn into a bona fide EMS transport. So it's not just always helping somebody back into a chair or something. Sometimes they truly do need a trip to the emergency room to get some kind of help. So, that's just a brief overview of our operational numbers for last month. I did want to mention, we're very pleased to announce that we will be holding the Goshen Country Fair in August. The dates are August 2nd through August 7th. And certainly hope to see all of you there. We're really excited to be back in the fair business.
Get the donut dough ready.
Yes, sir.
I want to see Mike in the dunk tank.
I do it. Can I wear a wetsuit, please? Grant, I wanted to mention to you, and I appreciate you sharing with us tonight. Last month, I think it was, and I just mentioned it really in passing to Carmen. I said, when we get the snapshot monthly reports, it's always nice to see a little perspective. And so if we knew what the incidents were, even though it may not be, a great reflection, but if say the prior year month, what the incidents were, is some sort of at least a perspective. And I said to Carmen, I said, look, I don't want to create any more work for the operation, but it's always nice to be able to say, yeah, back in April of 2020 or April of 2019, we had these many calls for service. It may or may not be indicative of anything, but it gives just a little bit more depth to the monthly snapshot. And that was, I'm not sure whether that may have prompted you to be here tonight, but I wasn't trying to dig for anything more other than just a little perspective on those monthly reports.
Yeah, that's an easy, so I've already added some columns to our monthly report. So you can see year-to-date comparisons from current year to last
That's
year.
great. That's great.
It's just tweaking a spreadsheet is all that is. So.
It may not be reflective of anything, but at least it gives us some little sense of the recent past.
Right. Very easy to do.
How about last night?
So last night we were dispatched to the pipeline pumping station on Boot Road in West Goshen Township for a gas alarm. I think the initial dispatch was about 20 minutes after 10. We arrived and there wasn't anybody there at the time, but within.
Hey, Grant, can I ask for detail? How were you dispatched? How were you notified? Was it a gas leak alarm? Was it a phone call? Was it 911? How was it?
The Energy Transfer Control Center called 911 and reported a gas alarm in their pump house. So that was the information we were given. And we were advised that they had personnel responding.
Were you advised what was flowing through were you advised what was flowing through?
No, that was simply a gas alarm. And, I know the product does change from time to time. It's our understanding that it's been propane for a period of time as a product. So we arrived, and within about 5 minutes, they had a key holder arrive to open the gates and let us in. We accompanied that person into the yard and went to the pump house, opened the door to the pump house, and there was a visible leak within the pump house.
When you say visible, was there auto refrigeration, ice, and?
Yes, there was. So immediately closed the door. We backed the fire apparatus away from the building. And while we were entering the yard, our team members were already starting to use our gas meters to monitor the atmosphere. And we were getting 0 readings. The propane that is in the pipeline is not odorized. So you have to rely heavily on your devices to detect the presence of the hydrocarbon. So immediately called for the Chester County Hazmat team to assist us. The team and the hazmat chief were on the scene in a very short period of time. And at the same time, Sunoco had a fairly large response of their team members as well. We continued to monitor while they assessed what was going on inside the pump house.
Hey, Grant, when they arrived, did they take over as the incident commander, or do you continue as incident commander?
I continued as incident commander. They become a subset of the incident command structure.
And Grant, I wanted to ask, how fast did the Sunoco Energy Transfer contractor get to the site?
5 minutes, right?
I think the first key holder arrived in about 5 minutes. I was speaking to a supervisor in person in probably 10 minutes.
Okay.
And there were when I was speaking to her, there was also a safety person and a mechanic on site as well.
Very good.
Okay.
We continued to monitor again, and I'll just cut to the chase. Throughout the entire incident, we never detected any explosive gases or anything on our meters throughout the entire situation. we still have to do a deeper dive in it, but it appeared that all of the systems associated with a leak in that pump house worked correctly. The ventilation system started, it pushed the any of the leak to the flare stack that is there. The flare stack was operating. And we confirmed that it was operating. We use our thermal cameras just to see the heat signature. So, you know, I'm not an energy transfer employee or professional, but it did appear to us that their systems worked correctly. We continue to monitor until the level of what we call the LEL within the pump house got below any explosive limit, got down to about 8, I believe, before we called it safe enough to reopen Boot Road. And
What time was that?
12:10, 12:20, somewhere in there.
Okay, so about 2 hours from the initial call.
Yes.
Were residents notified adjacent to the pumping station?
No, we did not do a formal, any kind of reverse 911 or anything. That decision was based on the fact that we had no readings and everything was contained to the pump house. I did speak to a resident from Mary Jane Lane, which is the street directly behind the facility. And I also spoke to a gentleman from the Hamlet Hill development as well, who's part of the pipeline task force or pipeline safety committee or whatever that is.
But there was no notification. Okay.
Grant, overall, is your, from what you know at this point in time, was your assessment on the response and the communication with the transmission company effective and adequate and to your operational needs?
Yes, I would say yes, it was. We've worked with these people previously. This was similar to the incident that occurred. Gosh, I guess it's been more than a year where the flare stack actually popped.
Yes,
Yeah.
popped. Yes.
In this instance, it functioned as designed. It did not
Build up.
explode or build
Gotcha.
up. Yeah.
Gotcha.
You know, I think, honestly, I think they are forthcoming when we work with them. I liken the experience working with them to working with this sort of the gas division of PECO. If anybody's ever seen those guys jump in a trench and close off a gas line, you know, in their street clothes and a pair of pliers, and they don't think twice about it. I think when you work around these things a lot, you have sort of a very pragmatic view of your work. And we act as the check and balance to make sure that the community is protected, and that's the, you know, that's the primary concern. So,
Grant, the LEL levels inside the building, did they reach any kind of concern level, explosive levels?
they were the highest it rose to was 14 LEL, which you know, you shouldn't and couldn't work safely in that environment. And that's why their automatic systems kick in. The ventilation's very, very aggressive. They push a lot of air through that pump house and into that flare stack. And it brought that LEL level from 14 down to a safer level of 8 in probably a half an hour. You know, and simultaneously they're bleeding the pressure off the pump, and you know, whatever device was leaking, you know, they're doing all that simultaneously.
Well, Grant, let me just ask questions specific to that. I don't want to take this too long, so we really appreciate the brief. But when they are reducing the pressure like that, is that on site immediate, or is that from a remote location?
Remote location.
Okay.
That's not a.
That's not
fully-
unusual. That's normal. That's
exactly.
Yes.
Everything's telemetry and remote
Yes.
control.
I just have one other question. Does Sunoco or Energy Transfer Partners let alone any of the other pipeline companies, make any contribution to our local fire company? Monetarily as in a membership or anything of that nature?
So Energy Transfer has a grant program that any public safety organization can apply to. We applied to that a couple of years ago to purchase replacement SCBA cylinders for our air packs. And we were awarded that grant. And then, oh gosh, the name's escaping me. It's the pipeline that runs under Hershey's Mill.
That Enbridge?
And yes, Enbridge.
Enbridge.
They have a smaller program, which we applied to recently, and we got a medium-sized grant to assist us with some firefighting equipment.
Okay.
So we're always sort of knocking on doors with these companies to see who has grant programs.
You can always let us know if you want us to knock on their door as well.
Grant, another question for you. Did you have any direct communications with the folks in the remote location, or was all communication through an on-site SET representative or contractor?
Everything was face-to-face for us. By
Okay.
the time we got there, I'd say 5 minutes is a pretty decent response time for that first person.
Mhm.
And the subsequent arrivals were very quick. The last person to get there was the site manager, and he was coming from New Jersey. But he was even there in time for us to work with him as well.
Okay.
I have other questions, but not for you guys. It really has to do with the failure of the seal in the pump station and the maintenance and when it was replaced and why it failed and all those kinds of things.
Right.
That's between me and Energy Transfer.
Grant, thanks very much. And Bob, thanks very much for your time and all the good information and sharing. We hope it's going to be a great Goshen Fair. Again, I think everybody will be primed and pumped to enjoy it and make it a successful event for the fire company.
Yeah, thank you, Mike. And if I could just take 30 seconds more, I want to thank both Rick and Mark Miller for the instrumental role they played a few years ago in helping put together the arrangement we have where during the day, qualified firefighters who are members of the Public Works Division are able to help us with calls during the day, whatever. That has been a real success story. And I know without a doubt, it's something that really helps us ensure reliability at a time that all fire companies are struggling with. So thank you once again for that.
Right. All right. Thank you. Thanks,
for
guys.
bringing
Thanks for that report.
Appreciate it.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Mr. Chair, it looks like there's a somebody wanting to make a comment, just a heads up. Or a question.
Okay. Well, we're in public comment, so it's appropriate to recognize that hand up. Christina.
Thank you. My name is Christina Morley. I'm a member of East Goshen's Pipeline Task Force. I wanted to thank you for coming and making the report to us tonight. I just had a question about community notification, and I was just wondering what would have triggered some sort of notification to the surrounding neighbors last evening. Would it have been readings that were taken outside of the pump station or some other trigger? Because I think that there's quite a bit of concern among residents that the second incident that's occurred at that location and people don't have really a means to find out what's going on. So if you could just comment on that, it would be appreciated.
I guess I'll take that. I think Grant has dropped off probably to get some sleep since he was up half the night last night with the incident. Basically, the fact that it was, you could say it was the pipeline, but it was actually the seal and the pump within the building at the pump house, whatever. So with that in mind, the readings from the start, we were able to ascertain that the readings were not outside the pump house. So that certainly played a role in that. Obviously, the nature of the product played a role in that. Not to underestimate propane, but if it had been something more significant than propane, that could have been a very different story. With that in mind, that's the reason notifications weren't made. One thing, as I mentioned, we will be doing a thorough review of this at the July LEPC meeting of the county. And also, we've got the Pipeline Safety Advisory Board the commissioners put together some time ago. And we now actually have a couple subcommittees on that. I think there's 6 subcommittees we have in place. One of the subcommittees will review incidents, including this incident. It will be the first incident we'll be reviewing. And the second, there's one about notifications. And part of what we'll be looking at is not only notifications of, did we notify the community appropriately, but also notifications about how we were notified in the first place. And with that in mind, I'm cautiously optimistic that Energy Transfer did all the appropriate things, but clearly one of the things we're going to want to know is exactly what time for their off-site location did they know that an alarm was going off? And when they knew there was an alarm going off, how long did it take to notify the 911 center? You know, those are things that we will be looking into to make sure that things were done appropriately in that regard.
Thanks. Thank you, Bob. And
Thanks,
thank you,
Bob.
Grant, very much for your time this evening.
Thank you, gentlemen.
All right. Again, we're in the, well, let me swing back to, we deferred action, or we actually voted on the segment B Paley Pike Trail joint permit application for the Historic Preservation Office Phase 1 archaeological survey. We had 4 people vote, and we ended up with a 2-2 vote. And you know, we still, I just would seek input on, shall we defer this until the 15th, or you want to make another go at voting on this, or table it to the next meeting? What's your desire?
Well, I can only say that I am annoyed with this type of an expense, and this entity that is making us do this. They've got their own territory they're protecting. It annoys the heck out of me. I'd really like us to send a letter and say, is this necessary? If we don't do it, what are you going to do, type of thing. That may or may not backfire. I'm still willing to vote for it to move the project along, but I don't think, I'm going to guess that we're not going to, without a full board, we're not going to be able to move off center of this. Michelle?
I have a couple of comments. I looked into this extensively today, and this is required by the Army Corps of Engineers, and it's part of the permit. So if this excavation is not done, if this archaeological excavation is not done, then the project is in jeopardy. They will revoke, they won't issue the permit. Under Section 106 of the National Historic Preservation Act, it's required that the findings of any type of type of an archaeological dig have to be shared with the public for public input. So if there are valuable archaeological, historically important,
Significant, yeah.
historically significant findings are made here, it goes to another phase and a more expensive phase.
Yep.
Then there has to be an evaluation of the site to determine the historic significance. I don't know if you've done research on the history of the area, but there was an encampment at Quaker Friends, and the encampment is not necessarily just at Quaker Friends, but rather, you know, it was miles long and wide. Troops came right up Paley Pike, through Paley Pike, through Goshenville, and all the way through Sugartown to the Battle of the Clouds. And so if there are Revolutionary War artifacts that are found, then the evaluation has to be done to determine what other direction the project could go. And then it goes to another phase, mitigation. If adverse effects are going to be done on the property, then there has to be some mitigation and some other form of doing the project. Again, all these phases cost more money, and that's a problem.
Hmm.
They're gonna cost more, we don't know how much more money they're gonna cost.
No, that's true.
We're completely at the whim
Mercy. Yeah, at the
and mercy of these organizations, and the Army Corps of Engineers is the driver.
Yeah.
And that's they're the be all and end all. So, like I said, the chances of there being archaeological
Significant.
or significant historic value, even if there's just a few, it stops everything. And then everything has to be reconsidered. I'm concerned about segment A, because if we start segment A without having this archaeological dig, and we find that we're not going to be able to move forward, then what have we done? And
That's a good point, Michelle. That's a good point.
and I know that you said, I know how you've advocated for this trail. Even if we were to move forward in a different manner, there would be less invasive to that particular property. I don't know if we'd be allowed to do it. And it concerns me. Like I said, I delved into this quite extensively today. I was on the phone for about 45 minutes with someone at the Historical Preservation Office of the state of PA. And he gave me his contact information. He said there's a very small percentage of cases where significant historical artifacts are actually found. He said, but the fact is that in this particular instance, that percentage is likely to be higher because of the fact that troops went right down Paley Pike, and in fact were in encampments along this entire stretch, all through Goshenville. So he said, there was a higher chance. He said, I'll be very, very excited to look at this study. He told me that Lotus is actually a very, just a fantastic company to deal with. So he did say, very familiar with Lotus. He said they are very, very respectful of animals and what they're doing. He said they don't like to disturb the land. That's why they go with hand shovels to start with.
Hey, Rick, is this part of the permit request for segment A or just B?
Segment B.
Okay.
Have we done these for any of the other segments along the trail?
It was not required.
If not required, we're not doing it. This is for segment B. Where are we in the application process if we don't do kind of timeline with acquiring the easements? Do we apply first, or do we wait to get the easements before we apply for the permit?
Well, we need both to get, we need the permit to get the grant. No, we're back. We need the right of way to get the grant, to apply for the grant. That's been the hold up on the grant.
But the permit is function.
permit to
We're not
build.
going to apply for a permit until we have the easements, right?
Well, no, one of the conditions before they'll grant the permit is we have to have a study done.
No, I'm saying, we're not going to ask for a permit prior to having the easement settled.
No, this is part of the process of getting the permit. They submitted the application. The historic people concluded that since this area has not been developed, in other words, Paley Pike has not been widened,
All right.
or there's been any construction activity, essentially from the creek eastward, westward, that this area is possibly, there could be something there, which is why they want to do the test.
But we could get the permit before we have the easement, couldn't we?
Yes, yeah, they're two
Yeah.
separate things.
That's my question.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. That's what I want to get to.
Thank you. All right. So I'm going to make a motion that we table this until the June 15th meeting.
All right, second that.
Any comments or questions? Comments or questions? This could be,
David, I have Marty on the line. I don't know,
Oh,
Okay.
boy.
but
We have to be able to talk with him. He has to be able to talk with
you have to, you have,
No.
sorry.
Yeah.
When is the 15th? Put it this way, whatever's there is not going to disappear or magically appear within the next 2 weeks.
Right.
If something's there, it's either there or it's not there.
Specifically, they're not looking for arrowheads, so don't plant any of those in the ground. In all honesty, he did tell me specifically, they're not looking at 1,000-year-old artifacts. He said they're looking for those
Revolutionary.
really
Yeah.
period time pieces, and that's what they're looking for.
Yeah.
He said, they could find a canteen or a cup, and it becomes the property of the landowner. So if the township is the landowner, then the township can then display it at the Plank House or give it to a museum if they wanted to.
Cool.
Oh, boy, I hope we don't have anything to display.
We got a
I'm
motion.
sorry, Marty, excuse me, Marty's trying to call back in. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Is it
The
too late?
heck with it.
Okay,
The
all right.
heck with it. It's, and he's either going to be on or not. I mean, talk about being impatient. I've gotten impatient with whatever is going on with Marty and the system that he's trying to communicate with. I'll blame it on the system and not Marty, but there's no sense in wasting another half an hour and then
No,
having him go into
We're
it.
going to be in person on the 15th.
So you table it? I'm
Yes.
sorry, I missed the motion. Are you tabling it till the 15th?
Does that, everybody feel all right with
Call the
tabling,
question,
John?
David.
Yeah, all those in favor?
Aye.
All right, carries 4-0. Thank you. We'll do it.
Susan, for the 15th, then it'll be on the agenda for a live in-person meeting that Marty
Yeah.
is hopefully going to be there.
Okay.
All right.
Thank
Can
you.
I make one request?
Yes.
And it's easy. I picked up on David's comment when we had the meeting with Westtown, and it would have been really terrific to have a whiteboard in the meeting room.
Yeah.
There are times when you just like to stand up and put something on the board. And I saw one the other day. I was at a different meeting and they wheeled it in. So you can wheel it from room to room. I would love to have something like that.
Mhm.
Well, how about the 15th?
You guys
On wheels.
check into a portable whiteboard on wheels.
Will do.
David, I wanted to circle back. We have to discuss a couple of other things under any other matter.
Okay.
The pipeline task force, the Flynn versus Sunoco issue. The pipeline task force would like to file the exceptions in this case. And there's also the Westtown Way pump station issue with the sewer authorities. We have to discuss those things.
Okay, those are good. Well, the pipeline task force, I certainly can support what they're asking for.
I
if we
thought
can
we
have
already
staff.
decided that.
That was,
No,
we talked about that just offline.
No,
Yeah.
we didn't decide anything. Yeah.
So the pipeline task force has asked the board to submit some additions to Judge Barnes's findings, primarily clarifying some of the requirements for Energy Transfer. One of them that's significant is that Energy Transfer is being asked to assist the townships in developing evacuation plans, and the task force, probably the most impactful, is asking to fund and assist, so offset some of the costs that we might have to bring in third-party, qualified consultant to help us with evacuation plans, professionals. So that was one of the changes, and I think we've all
talked
got
about-
to read those. So
Yeah.
we want to.
Yeah, I
think
certainly
that,
support the task force in us submitting those inquiries and requests to the administrative law judge or the proper party in the proceeding, and they've thought about it, and I think they've got some good points, and let's see if we can get a response from them that's positive.
Yeah, Michelle, thank you for bringing that up, because the deadline for submission is June 3rd. So
exactly. And so the pipeline task force was supposed to notify Rick by today. Did you get any recommendations?
No more. Nothing new.
Recommendations that they
Nothing
made.
new.
So then,
Yeah.
do we have to direct Rick to accept their recommendations and put it in a?
Rick?
to submit by the 3rd, that would be the motion. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to make a motion, Mr. Chairman, that we accept the recommendations that have been submitted by the Pipeline Task Force in regard to the geological test reports should be made public. In addition to all of the other things that they've requested, and that it should be prepared and filed by the deadline of June 3rd by the manager. And I think that's my motion.
Second that.
Okay. Any other comments from the board
Floppy,
members?
but sorry.
Any members of the
Rick,
public?
and Rick and Derek, thank you for, short order, getting those out with the limited time that you have left. So with the rest of your schedule, thanks for pressing on with that one.
All right, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Aye.
Do we have to
Aye.
have public
Aye.
discussion?
Yeah, I did. I asked and
Oh, yes, then aye, yes. Mhm.
nobody raised a hand. The other matter was the pump station issue. And do we
So
need to
have a
make?
joint meeting. We need to have a joint meeting with West Goshen regarding the sewer treatment plant improvements, the pump station improvements. So rather than having a joint meeting with all of the board members and all of the municipal authority members, do we need to make a motion, Rick or Derek?
I would,
Well, I think one of the things we would like to do, I believe, that would be of value before we is to consult with our municipal authority members.
Yes.
And that would be an executive session because this is a potential legal matter. And so we would be having an executive session at the next municipal authority meeting in June 14th. And at that time, we may or may not decide how we will interact with the West Goshen Municipal Authority and the Board of Supervisors. And any action that would come out of that executive session with the municipal authority would be announced by the municipal authority at their regular meeting, which would follow the executive session on the 14th.
Do we need to make any motion or just acknowledge that we talked about that?
It's just an acknowledgement.
Yeah,
David,
that's what I
Good,
would think.
okay.
All right, so we've acknowledged that.
I'm glad you brought it up, Michelle. Those were two that
Yeah,
almost
we
slipped.
needed to get them out there.
That's the path that we're going to take. All right, it's 8:57 and 37 seconds. Public comment.
You already had some public comment.
Well,
And
Okay.
Mr. Chair.
No liaison reports. I'd like to acknowledge some correspondence real quickly. A really nice letter from Charles McDonald on the phenomenal work that the Public Works Department did in taking care of some issues. And I like that he used the word moxie in his letter, that our Public Works Department has
Moxie. That's true grit. True grit.
And
I will say this, that, if it weren't for the Public Works Department and people like Mark Miller, I don't know whether we get any compliments from anybody.
well, Jason.
sadly,
Whoa.
The second was a thank you from the Chester County Library System, who sent along their abbreviated annual report, basically thanking us for supporting the library and going forward. So I appreciate that too. So
I would make a motion to adjourn.
okay, Mike second that. I will call the question.